Uganda has everything to offer. I mean, there's everything. Look at how green the bloody place is. Look around you, how beautiful it is. All year round. Look, I'm sitting here and I'm sitting in my garden. It looks like people would pay a fortune in Europe to have something like that. It's not possible. People pay money to go in the weekends to a tropical garden to see and watch. You know, I'm sitting here, I'm living in one. I even have monkeys in my garden. People go to a zoo and pay to see a monkey, have them in my garden. Sometimes.
The birds.
They steal my bananas, my sweet bananas. But for the rest, you know, it's okay. It's okay. I forgive them, you know. You know, life is good here. And I've been in Uganda for about 23 years. I came here in 2003 for the first time in October. And then I started going up and down. And then eventually, I think a few years later, I settled here. Why did I settle here? No, that's the question. Why did I come here? Right. Well, these days, I had businesses in Belgium, and I was planning to sell them because actually I was sick of it. I had it. I want to get rid of it. And in the meantime, I met this lovely lady, which is now my wife. And the lovely lady said to me, you know what, if we ever start a relation, you have to be flexible and you have to come with me to Africa because I'm starting a new career as a consultant from, I think, a Dutch company she was working for in Uganda, and I'm starting up a new career. And I thought like, this is complicated because I've been traveling all over the world, but Africa was not my main continent of interest. But, you know, I thought maybe I should give it a chance because it's going to be for a few years and then we're back here, no problem. You know, it's going to be a short time. Anyway, so I came here and apparently it was not for a short time. Actually, for the moment, it's 23 years. I had a hard time in the beginning. I came here to settle, to build up a network, to build up a life, because it's a completely different continent. Where do you start? You know, and these days I was then 47 years old. So you can calculate that I'm 70 right now. So I was 47 years old and I came here, with a very big established network in my home country, but with nothing here. I lived then in Entebbe the first 2 years, which is not the most exciting place of Uganda, you know, compared to Kampala anyway. But then slowly on things changed, beginning with getting to know people, with finding something to do here because, okay, my wife was working, but be the partner of an expat is actually a very boring thing to be, boring status to have, being the partner of somebody that works, you know, not having nothing to do. It's not something that is a pleasurable way of life, obviously. But because of my past, I wasn't in film and video, but in the past I was in contemporary art. I was creative contemporary art, and we used a lot of film and video in contemporary art in exhibitions, not only in the exhibitions as artworks, but also to document the exhibitions, to promote the exhibitions. We used a lot of audiovisual materials to do that. And then I thought, what do I really want to do in my life? Because my past was hotel business. Hotels. I started the first backpackers in Belgium in 1975, which we're celebrating now the 50th birthday on the 16th of May. It still exists. And I started second backpackers, I started hotels, coach company, whatever, things like that, until I sold it. Many years after I came to Uganda, because in the beginning I was traveling up and down, because you couldn't sell it that easily, so I was going up and down. Trying to find customers, try to sell the business. And I was running it with my brother, so we were taking turns. So he's traveling a lot too, so I could do that. But when I finally got sold, then I thought it was the right time to start something here. And I thought, like with my past in fine arts, I always want to do something that's creative and that's technical, because I love technology as well. So the combination between creativity and technology, that's film and video, I think. It's a lot of technology involved, you know. There's also a lot of creativity involved. So I started to bring some equipment here, and in the very beginning I was freelancing as a video journalist. I was working for German television, Belgian television a few times, ARRI, French television, did some documentaries, stuff like that. But then I soon changed into starting a rental company. Didn't like the journalist part too much, but I thought it was a bit stressful, and I thought, like, I'm more into organizing things than actually doing things myself, or making new concepts or thinking things out, building up something new. That's more my thing than doing day-to-day work. Especially I had the age already to, was about 50 years old at that time, I suppose, 50 and in my early 50s. Thought, like me, do something different. And then I came to the conclusion that there was a big need of good equipment in Uganda. Because I brought this, I bought the first, I think, HD and camera and 4K camera in the beginning. And everyone's going like, wow, what is this, And then slowly on, I started buying more equipment and started renting it out. And from one thing came another. Then a long time ago, 15, 16 years ago, I bought this plot here when there was still bush here. Huh? There was no talk about that road. This was still bush below. There was nothing here. And then when I didn't know about the road, but then when we realized they're going to build a road, and we're very close to the road, and I thought, like, maybe we should use the plot and come and live here and build a house and build a studio at the same time, because I had in the old place, I had like my 2 garages that I fixed into one. I put all my equipment, and it was a little bit, too small. And I thought, like, let me build a small warehouse for my equipment and then build a studio at the same time, because there might be a need for studios in Uganda as well. The interesting about studios in Uganda, I built a big one. As you see, it's very big. It's 300 square meters, 6 meters high. I think it's the biggest one in the whole East Africa. And I thought, like, wow, this is going to be, everybody's going to want that. Nobody used it. In the first years, nobody used it, Actually, nobody. Maybe Sasha Vibes a few times, and a few other people, but that was all. Then I thought, what's going on? And then I realized that, first of all, compared to Europe, where we have a terrible climate, and compared to here, you have a perfect climate. You can work outside every day of the year almost. You can always be outside to work. But also, there is certain needs you need a studio for, but people don't have budgets here. And that brings us back to the rentals. I can tell you a few stories about the rentals. Huh? So we're the cheapest country in the world in Uganda for renting out equipment, or basically me. Why? Because the budgets are low. And why? Second thing too, I'm retired. I don't need to make a living of it. I can make it run flat. I don't need to live from it. Don't need to take money out of it. I can just make it, everything that comes in, I can invest it again and build it up and create, let us say, cheap equipment, cheap access to equipment for video makers, for filmmakers, for music video makers, whoever, so they have access to very good equipment on a very affordable price, cheaper than anywhere else in the world. That works out. But the main reason it works out is there's no financial pressure here from my side to have to make a living it. I don't have to buy a house from it. I don't have to rent a house from it. I don't have to buy a car from it. I don't have to pay myself from it. That's all taken care of, from my past, from selling my business and home, from my retirement. I'm a pensioner, so I'm getting a pension from my government. And so I don't need to live from it. And that gives me the freedom to, let us say, keep it very affordable and helping out a lot of the industry in Uganda, which I did. I think because of what I've been doing for 18 years, I have really helped out a lot of people in the Ugandan film and video industry with making good equipment accessible on an affordable price. Because before it wasn't there, and people used old stuff or terrible stuff to do something. But now, and especially talk about the first 10 years, because then a very good equipment was still very, very expensive. Now these days, in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, very good equipment became much more affordable. There's still a big need for rentals, because not everybody can, first of all, buy the equipment, has the financials to invest in the equipment. And second of all, sometimes people need equipment for a short amount of time. You're not going to buy a camera because you need a second camera for 2 or 3 days in a year, or for 2 or 1 day in a month. You're not going to buy a second camera for that. You're going to rent one. You as a videographer or as a business in film and video, you would maybe have a basic set where you do your day-to-day work with. But when something special turns up, you need extra equipment, you go to a rental company. And that's more a bit like how it works all over the world. Sometimes you have foreigners coming in, very, very rare. But it happens. Like now, we have BBC here interviewing, what's his name? Ruanda Rukunda. I heard the name before, but it's very hard for me to keep remembering it and pronouncing it. And anyway, so like now he's getting interviewed in the studio by the BBC for a program I think they do about the 70s, the Idi Amin period, when Idi Amin sent out the Indians, and they actually making a program about the Indians being forced out of the country in the 1970s during the Idi Amin period. They actually rebuilt a plane in Entebbe, one of these planes, one of the two old planes, not the one that was hijacked in the 70s, but the other one on the beach. They rebuilt the interior completely like a 70s plane. I'll show you the photos. They're amazing. It's amazing what they've done there. So yeah, that we have sometimes. And also we had last week, another group from England that was doing some documentary work about projects they were doing. It's an NGO doing, they were doing, how we say, NGO documentaries about the project they're doing. But that happens rarely. It's rarely that foreigners come here, which I think should happen more. I think as Uganda, we should, as a country, promote foreign film and TV crews to come here to do film work and documentary work, because we can, people can produce here much cheaper than at home, much cheaper. Climate ways, equipment ways, staff ways, it's so much cheaper than it is in Europe or America. And it would be a great way to give jobs to people, you know, to create jobs. You know, we have good videographers, DOPs, we have good sound people, we got good people of everything here. And these foreigners, they don't have to bring their expensive staff from Europe or America. They can get staff here, send a director and a few organizers over, oversee the project and work together with local people, which will be good for them, saving fortune, which will be good for local people, get exposed to an international way of working, and they can learn a lot, you know. They can get very good experiences and a lot of experiences doing it that way. You know, sometimes I think I see like this BBC crew coming here with 7 foreigners, staying in speak resort, you know, having transport. You know what that costs? It's a fortune. Why need to bring 7 people over? Bring a director over and an organizer and get local people, give the jobs to local people, get the jobs to local people, let the money go to the local community, and also get, most important, give this experience to local people to grow, to learn, to grow in the business, to make the business even stronger than it is. And it's something maybe interesting to know, and not many people know this in Uganda. As me coming from the contemporary art, this is interesting actually, very interesting. Every 5 years, the most important show in the world is Documenta in Germany. It's the show every 5 years that shows the future of contemporary art. I thought, yeah, Uganda is growing in contemporary art, but before we ever going to get a Ugandan on that show, it's always 6 months, every 5 years, the summer months, and it attracts about 1 million people. But 1 million people who are into this business, in the art business, professionals, you know, museum directors, curators, blah, 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 from all over the world. So it's a huge exposure. To my big surprise, there was a Ugandan in Documenta 15 in 2022. 27 is the next one next year. And 2022. And who was in there? In Documenta, of all people in Uganda? Wakaliwood, Isaac, from Wakaliwood. The guy is so famous outside of Uganda. Everybody knows him. In Uganda, maybe not, but outside. But anyway, the fact that he was a very good ambassador for Uganda on Documenta 15 and being exposed, because 1 million people came there to see him.
Low budget movies, yes.
You know him, but you know he was on BBC, he was on CNN, he was on Al Jazeera. Even Belgium television made a documentary about him, about his work and about his movies. The Swiss TV did that, I think Swedish and Danish TV, and of course Al Jazeera, CNN, and BBC did that. So he's a really good ambassador for his country and promoting the country to the outside world, I think. And the way he talks and the way he talks to the press, I think it's really cool. I think he knows how to handle public.
He's such a natural. So you talk about so many things, and I like the intersection of your story.
Yeah.
That brings tourism, and now you talk about the opportunities that we have as a film destination that is not yet seen the potential, probably. Where do you think the bottlenecks might be for us to break through the visual arts or film per se?
Like again, about the visual arts, we're doing well. We have for the third time in a row also a pavilion at the Biennale of Venice, which is supported very strongly by our government, by the Ugandan government, which is very good. So they realize the exposure because Biennale of Venice. Sorry, there's also 800,000 people going there. So I think they really understood the importance of this exposure. So they're really actually helping a lot. That's at least that's what I heard from the commissioner at the pavilion, which is a friend of mine. So she says this. She showed me that she gets good support. Not enough always, but it always needs more. But a very decent amount of support. So, and I think they always manage to get that pavilion done in a very good way. Also in fine arts, there were also in some major exhibitions in Europe. There were Ugandan artists, and we also have ARRI Art Gallery on the 7th Street with Dodi Kaunji is his name, I think, who is a very big promoter of Ugandan art and was a pioneer promoting Ugandan art toward the outside world. And he did a lot of work to bring Ugandan artists to the global, let's say, stage. And it worked out well. I think he was one of the first pioneers. Second pioneers were Arts Trust 32 Degrees, which are for the moment building a new center there in Kabalagala. Which that they actually were the people that brought Wakaliwood to Documenta. And there's more things happening. And now is it the film industry? No. One filmmaker that makes it outside is Ali Lukman with movies on Netflix, but nobody else gets there.
Why not?
Why not? And also in the music industry, by the way, it's also not doing very, very well internationally. Ugandan music is not doing very well internationally yet. You can say it, but I think, let's say the movie industry, I think they're copying too much America and Europe without finding their own identity to export. In the film industry, I think if you watch a Ugandan movie, it's not suitable for an international public. It's something wrong with the stories. They're copying cheap Nigerian soaps most of the times, instead of bringing good stories. Lukman knows how to bring a good story. He brings good stories. I mean, he's on Netflix, but I don't think he's not getting a huge amount of viewers because his movies are more for not the average person that watches a movie, but for a small group of how would I say, movie lovers, which like special movies, which like not commercial movies made for the big public. So yeah, we have to think about that, I suppose. But for me, of course, the movie industry could do better to the outside world. But I think what we're lacking here in Uganda is education on a higher level. We have a lot of entry education in the movie industry. All these movie schools, they give you the basics. Even the European government, the European embassy here, as of a very nice project, opportunities are here, but it's all entry level. So once you've done your entry level, your basics, where do you go from there to go to an international level? Where do you go? You have to go outside of Uganda, but who can afford that?
Which Ugandan story would you like to watch?
Ugandan story? I don't know, it's a very difficult question. What's a Ugandan story, I mean, Ali Lukman's stories are Ugandan, but are really Ugandan. They're not your stereotypes, traditional Ugandan stories, what he's bringing. He's bringing something very original, something different. Like to watch, I think from within the Ugandan culture, there could be an original approach, not a copying approach, but original approach, building an original story from within inside a Ugandan identity, Being Ugandan, being a contemporary Ugandan, and build a contemporary Ugandan story, or even a classic Ugandan story, whatever, but bring it in a way that it could attract the global scene, the global stage, that it could reach the global stage. So that would be very important. How to do that, I don't know. I mean, you need very good script writers, and you need people that are exposed to the international movie scene, you know, how things work there, and not your big commercial movies, because you cannot compete with these. You cannot compete with the Hollywood box office, how you say it, success story. It's not possible, but you have to compete then with the alternative movie scene, in which way you can reach a lot of public and to people that don't want to watch your main commercial popular movies but want something better, different, you know. I know it needs to happen, but I'm not the only one that that can do that alone, something like that. I can help with advice and equipment and other things, and what to use, what not to use, for example, or many technical and also in matters of like setting and scenery, or mainly technical stuff, maybe also content stuff, what sort of content, blah, blah, will work because of my European experience. But that's something that teams of people need to do. You need like a team of people, but each their own speciality that can actually, how would I say, fill in all these little bits, each from their own perspective, from their own knowledge base, you know, and then come to, how would I say, a working instrument that could help filmmakers to reach abroad. Because that's, if you know, the film industry is little funded, has little money to spend to make good movies.
Let's talk cameras.
Okay, cool. That's the fun bit. What do you want to know about cameras?
What do you want to tell us about cameras?
Well, there's many.
How many cameras do you have?
I think around 50, somewhere up and down, 40, 50. I don't know, because some get old and they have to throw away. Huh? When you don't work anymore. If a camera gets too old and the technology gets a bit old and it breaks down, it's not worth repairing anymore sometimes, and you just like, you know, it's garbage. That depends on what camera, but mostly the times, you know, there's cameras. My most expensive camera is hanging on the wall there. My first shoulder camera, I think it was $30,000. I think back in 2008. And the first non-tape camera in Uganda was with, not with disc, but with a sort of disc, you know, a blue laser disc. It's called XD Cam, Sony XD Cam, very popular in the old days. It was also the first HD camera, I think, one of the first HD cameras for broadcasting. And any telephone is better than that now. You know, like that thing is like almost 20 years old, or 18 years old. So that's old. Technology is moving on. Then a couple of years later, we became, what happened, or even like 1 or 2 years later, things changed dramatically in the 2008, 2009, because then Red came out with the first 4K camera. And then by accident, Canon launched the 5D Mark II, which had very nice video capabilities and a full frame video. That was the first cinema camera, and the Red that came out. Was 2008. So made the very expensive camera I bought kind of already old-fashioned after it was 1 year old. Well, not really. It was very good for broadcasting, you know, because of the sound and everything and the possibilities, and especially the big the zoom lens that could take a lot of in and out. You know, it could cover a lot of distances. I put it that way. But now, so many years later, all these cameras became much cheaper, much better. For example, I'll give you an example, and which caused a lot of issues in the film industry and in the camera manufacturers. We all knew that Red is bought by Nikon because Red got into trouble because of, you know, is it worth it spending that much money on a camera? Well, basically, the end user won't see the difference, you know, with it when an expensive one. The worst case is ARRI. An ARRI Alexa 35mm, their flagship, is $70,000 without lenses. Right.
Whoa.
That thing is useless. I mean, it's a beautiful camera, Super 35, not even full frame, really good picture quality, but a Blackmagic camera from like $6,000 or $5,000 does exactly the same. I'm not going to see the difference. You guys are not going to see the difference. And especially the end viewer is not going to see the difference on the end of the story. You know, why not buying 14 Blackmagics instead of one Alexa? For one Alexa, I get 14 Blackmagics, which does exactly the same job. It's also super 35mm sensor, has also 16 stops of dynamic range. It has actually the same specs. And the picture quality, the fact that you could use ARRI LUTs on a Blackmagic, you think, why the hell is that? They have similar color signs, or what the story here? Of course, ARRI will say we have the color signs. Well, you shoot raw, yeah, big deal. But you know, again, a lot of people shoot ARRI in the international world because of the name, but that's wearing out. The name goes down. People are not fooled anymore. You know, they don't want to pay that much money for something that's not worth it. You know, we done things like an ARRI lens, and then I think we done a comparison with an ARRI lens and a DZO, which is Chinese. The DZO or Korean, I'm not sure. The DZO was about $1,200. The ARRI was about $25,000. Same quality. Lens breeding, both nothing almost. Chromatic aberration, very good in both lenses. So 1,200, 25,000, almost the same result. 10 times 1,200 is 12,000, 20 times is 24,000, 25,000, yeah. 21 times the price. The film industry changed a lot, and I think Blackmagic here was the big interrupter in the film industry, because they brought out equipment. They started with converters, then with mixers, and then finally with cameras. And they brought very, very good equipment out on like a 10 to 20th of the normal price, which was very disruptive for all the other companies, which made a lot of other companies go on their knees, closing down or scaling down or lowering their prices, being competitive. Sony interacted very well with that, with bringing out like the FX3, the most popular camera in Uganda for the moment, Sony FX3. Everybody wants to use that camera because of its low light capabilities, but it's a technology which is already more than 10 years old. The FX3 not, but it's the same sensor as in the old FS Sony A7 II, which is was already 12, 13 years ago, very well known for its low light. You can shoot basically in pitch dark and see more of the human eye with that camera. And I think a lot of people use that camera because they save on lights. They can work even late at night. The bad side of that camera is that, of course, the dynamic range is not so high and the compression is higher because it doesn't shoot raw. But then if you want to shoot raw, then we have the other things. But even Nikon now, after buying Red, they brought out a camera, the Nikon ZR, and it says on the back Nikon Red. So it's Red technology and a small body, about that size, small body. And the price is around $3,000 for that camera. Not anymore 20,000 like for another Red camera. But basically you have similar results, similar quality, almost the same. There's a few details that, you know, are more, you know, you need a lot of, because it takes a lot of memory. So you need like terabytes when you shoot with that thing. Because it's non-compressed and you cannot really set a certain compression like in Red. You need to shoot raw. Needs a lot of memory, so it'd be complicated. But, or you need a lot of hard drives. But anyway, we have lots of other cameras that are shooting raw and have a decent, like the Blackmagic, they all shoot raw, but they have very good compression rates also in raw. Yeah, all sorts of things. It's not only camera, it's also lights, sound, grips, you know, like cranes and dollies, jibs, that sort of things, which is also very needed in our industry. And of course lenses. You know, we got everything that's necessary to shoot a movie or to do how would I say, to make it TV series, or to do an interview, or to do TV program, whatever, or make a music video. Also the studio. Studio is mainly used very often for music videos, now occasionally for an interview or for interviews by the BBC. Also for ads, shooting ads, because you need a controlled environment to shoot an ad. All things you need a controlled environment for, that you can't do outside, you know. Or you need to be sure that the weather's going to be fine, not it'll start raining, or, you know. So yeah, and studios started working better now, but I really had to cut my price in three, you know. lower it by 2/3, and then I have a few people. It starts slowly on working.
How much do you?
How much do I charge for the studio?
Yes.
$150 per day. I know it's ridiculously low. It's cheaper than a hotel room.
Okay, and
Well, it's 500,000 shillings a day, of course. It's shillings, but 500,000 shillings is about equivalent of $150.
okay, and what comes with that?
Well, a space of 300 square meters, 6 meters high, which is quite big, and at the same time, some lights on the ceiling, about 15 film lights on the ceiling, 12, 13, something like that, and a generator. Not the fuel. The fuel you have to add extra, but the generator is included. A 20 kilowatt, 20,000 watt generator is included. A silent one.
Okay, and for the cameras, how much do you charge?
Well, it depends on that. That varies between 100,000 for the cheapest ones up to like 500,000 for a Red or Infinity, the top end cameras per day without lens. What we make packages with lenses. If you rent for a week, you pay 4 days, you get 3 days for free. And if you rent for a month, you pay 12 days, get 18 days for free. It depends how long the month is, 18 or 19, or if it's February, only 16 days.
And for the lenses, how do you categorize the rates?
Lenses is so many different ones, from very cheap to very expensive lenses. It goes around from 50 to 150,000. We have quite expensive cinema zoom lenses, but also cheaper photographic lenses, which are also very good. Depends on what you need it for and how you need it, because I think every DOP will choose the lens according to his specific needs. And there's a big variety into the needs of a DOP and what he actually wants. Also, a lot of that could be a little bit being used to. A DOP will also choose a camera or a lens where he's used to working with, where he feels comfortable with. You will not start using a camera on a set which you just got and you never worked with it before, because then you go like, oh, how does this work? Or where does this thing in the menu? How to look for this? You'll be confused. You need to get used to the camera before you bring it on a set, or at least have a day or 2 days before that you can learn how to work with it before you bring it on a set. If it's a new camera you never handled, you will have to look for certain settings in the menu, or for this or for that, or where's that attachment, or how can I put this together, or how does this work. So that is very complicated. Not very complicated, but I mean, it is something that you have to be aware of, that you don't bring a camera that you don't know very well to a set. You got to get to know your gear.
Under what arrangement do you rent out this? I mean, do I just walk in and get a camera?
No. Of course, we have security. We register you as a client with a national ID and a reference to another filmmaker or somebody that you know in the film industry, so that we know you're referred. He knows you, and we can check you. Because we had people here coming. That happened once, that people came here to steal, and the first time they got it, they walked out with cameras, never returned, of course, with fake IDs. Second time they came in, we realized it, because they were asking for they were asked 5 cameras, or 5 most expensive cameras, and lenses that don't fit with it. They'll go like, these people are nothing. And then we checked the idea carefully, we saw it was a fake one. So we got them arrested, but nothing came out of that, of course. They got arrested, but I don't know what happened later. I think they were the same people that stole the equipment before. So we thought, let's try to recuperate the equipment that was stolen before. Police couldn't do very much. Everything disappeared, and you know how it works. I know it was complicated to do. But at least they didn't run off with my most expensive stuff. I'm assured as well, but only the assurance covers breaking in, violence, that sort of things. When somebody rents and doesn't bring it back, that's not, there's no assurance for that. But per client, had it happened at a client, was on a documentary, and kept the equipment in a hotel room. The hotel room was broken into. That was covered by the assurance because it was broken into. So, but if you leave it in a car overnight, it's not assured. During the day it is, but not during the night. But it's also the things, assurance are a bit, They have certain specific rules, and they rule the most dangerous situation. Leaving equipment in a car at night on the road, that is something that you should never do. That is asking to be broken into, of course. But if the car is in a closed environment, then the insurance covers it, but not when it's in an open environment, when it's outside on the road. And also not when you come to rent it or you give it to somebody, they don't bring it back, the insurance doesn't cover that as well. There need to be like a proof of violent breaking in or other violence, and a police report, of course, to prove that before they coming in and pay out. So we warn our customers to handle equipment in a proper way. But Ugandans are very good in that. We had little theft during all these years, very little actually, and usually people handle equipment quite well. The issues that we have sometimes, people drop something, dropping a lens, that becomes expensive, and then they pay a certain flat fee, and we try to get the rest from the assurance. What happens a lot is, and we cover that completely, is and lights and stuff like that. The power ballast are getting broken because of the unstable electricity and the net here. Electricity can sometimes fluctuate between 150 and 220 volts, and certain pieces of equipment, or even go higher, certain pieces of equipment cannot handle some of these peaks, low or high, especially high. When there's a very high peak up to 240, 250, then they can actually get broken and need to replace or need to repair. Repairing is complicated because you have to ship it out of Uganda. For most things, we can repair a few things here. But even here, I'm dealing now with Sony and Canon. They're coming here to give workshops. But even them, for them to do repairs on their equipment, it's very difficult. It's bad. It's actually pretty bad. We sent two Sony cameras in for repair, and they went to Dubai. They couldn't fix them and send them back here. I take them to Europe, and it'll take me 2 days to get fixed in Europe. I'm sure of it. But here, they just couldn't handle it, and even in Dubai, they couldn't handle it, which is, for a Sony dealer, I was thought like, I was a bit surprised that a big company like that in the whole of Africa cannot repair a camera. How many Sonys are there in Africa? It's like a Toyota or in cars. Most cars are Toyota, even most cameras are Sony, or lots of them are. No repair? It's pretty strange. I mean, and they will say, yeah, we repair, but eventually when it gets there, you get it back. Sorry, we can't fix it. No, I'm taking it to Europe now. Get it repaired there. So we see. I'm pretty sure they're going to fix it quickly. The Sony dealers, they probably have better labs and more spare parts, or I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know, because the problem with the camera was actually the Sony was the last one I went was just software issue, and they could deal with it. I don't know. I think in Europe they will tell me what was the issue. Maybe it's a hardware problem. I don't know. Cameras are complicated things, complicated technology. It's not something just anybody can repair.
Which is your current favorite?
The Blackmagic Pixis 12K.
Why?
Shooting 12K is interesting. You can post, you can zoom in, you can pan, you can tilt. You have 98 megapixels. That's amazing. That's about almost like the amount of pixels on a Hasselblad camera, Hasselblad photo camera, medium format. It's huge. 98 megapixels. 12K is huge. You crop it to 4K, you crop it to like 1/8 or something. Even in 4K, you could do nice zooms in and out. You can do pans, you can do tilts, and post. It's what they with Isaac. I interviewed them with a Pixis 12K. I just put the camera there, and in post I could have a close-up of his face, a wide shot, and a mid shot, in one shot. It's easy. I don't need a second camera. I had the second one from another angle, but I had so much flexibility with the 12K, which is fantastic. And of course, the higher resolution that you shoot with and you lower it down for the end result, your quality will be better. And it's amazing. 17 stops of dynamic range, I think, which you can shoot in full daylight with hard sun. It deals with the lows and the highs very well. You have a certain amount of lowering the bit rates, sort of compression in the RAW. from I think 1.3 to 1.18, something like that. So if you lower it a bit, then you can still have a fantastic quality without needing like 10 terabyte or something like that. You can still make it quite useful. The ones that we have here come with 4 terabyte, with a 4 terabyte recorder, and with a 4 terabyte memory, and so that's fair enough. Depends on how you shoot, of course, but yeah, I like that camera. And maybe second, the new Nikon ZR, which is a combination between Nikon and RED technology, and it's actually fantastic. I had a very well-known DOP in Uganda calling me at 10 o'clock in the evening to go on about how fantastic the camera was. It was kind of funny. I mean, the guy was so enthusiastic. He says, I need to call you. I needed to call you now. I need to tell you how wonderful that camera is. It's amazing. He's used to shoot with ARRIs. He shoots with ARRIs a lot. So the guy knows what he's talking about. I was really surprised. And I was happily surprised that he was so enthusiastic about the camera. As for now, but that could change tomorrow. Huh? I mean, you know how technology evolves these days. It's amazing. However, I think in matters of cameras, we reached the level that it'd be hard now to, yeah. I mean, like the Pixies, that was Blackmagic breaking new rules there with bringing out a 12K camera, which nobody expected anybody would bring up anything more than 8K. They come with a 12K and blew all the other companies away. And they even have a 17K camera on the market. That's an expensive one. But they have a 17K camera in the market, which actually the first real full-blown digital IMAX camera. The funny thing is now, slowly on, the big companies start using Blackmagic, but still in the beginning, Blackmagic sold a lot more than the expensive brand because they have a big range of clientele, which is the middle class, you know, the middle class in our industry. People that can afford, everybody can afford the Blackmagic, basically, even in Uganda. And then the high end says, oh, we don't want to use Blackmagic because they're too cheap. If the camera is lower than $30,000, we don't want to use it. It needs to be more than $30,000, then we use it. But now they made a $30,000 camera, the 17K. It's worth that, it's cost that much. And it's actually fantastic technology. It's also a medium format sensor, that like bigger than full frame sensor, like real IMAX in all ways. It's an amazing tool, I think. But I'm not going to buy it for Uganda because nobody's going to rent it and nobody's going to pay for it here. Nobody has a budget to use that camera. I would see the need to use it, you know. I will not buy it, but I say I would not buy an ARRI because people are not going to pay for it. Because with an ARRI, I have to ask maybe 3 million, 3.5 million a day for an ARRI. And even then, I would not make any money if you pay $70,000 for a camera and you ask, let's say, $3,500 a day. You need to rent it out 70 days before you start making profit. 70 days in Uganda for an ARRI. I mean, if you get maybe 20, 30 days a year, you'll be happy. By the camera is paid for, so really 2-3 years down the road, then you start making profit, and then it's just, it's not possible to. There's just. In Europe, they pay much more money for an ARRI. They pay a lot of money for a day, and it's profitable, and there's money, and the camera be rented out very often. But here, you would have like maybe 1 a month, maybe 12 a year, if you're lucky, you know. And then you sit there with these very expensive cameras, getting not used most of the time, and sits there on shelves, gathering dust. You know, you wouldn't do that. The market is not here for that sort of cameras.
What's your average day like here?
Waking up, of course, drinking coffee, do all my answering my mails like everybody does, thinking about new ways that we can improve the business, do paperwork, talking to people, training. I am a fanatic triathlete. I do triathlons, and I'm going to go into marathons. I want to run my first marathon for my 70th birthday. People tell me I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy. It's cool. It's fun. If you can do it, you can do it. You have to train, you train. I train every day. Every day. I will train today. I do, for triathlon, I swim, I run, I bicycle, and I do yoga. Not all 4 every day, of course I would have no time to do anything else, but one of the 4 every day, or sometimes 2, when I have time. And once in a while I take a day rest, but rarely when I have little time. It's possible. Then there's no space for it. That's one thing. There's another thing. I'm also involved in the Belgium club, which I organize. It's a 2 monthly gathering, 6 weeks, 2 months gathering of all the Belgians in Uganda and their partners, business partners and other partners, to get together to build up social life, network, sort of thing. We do that together with the embassy, Belgian embassy, which is a big help in organizing these events for me. And now to also get together with the Belgian embassy, we going to start the Belgian-Ugandan Business Forum. That is something that we will establish um, to help foreign investors from Belgium, in our case, help them investing here, to help them in maybe legal affairs, give them advice, advice of accountancy, lawyers, incentives of the government, where to get them, what paper to, blah, blah, the official way. But on the other hand as well, the practical things of day-to-day life in Uganda. You're not coming from America here, and you go here and expect that things will work the same way as they work in your home country. They're different. And sometimes we don't think enough about these, but if you have foreigners working and living here, to help them a little bit, if they're day-to-day dealing with everything, uh, dealing with something, dealing with power, dealing with the housing, power is a very important issue because it's not always there. People from outside don't realize that, but all of a sudden, electricity is gone. We never have that happening in Western countries, but that happens here. So how do you deal with that? Things like that. These practical things is very important, but also on company level, it's very important. And one thing is helping companies establish themselves in not only legal ways and practical ways, also helping them how to deal with staff HR issues, many things like that. One way and another way, or on a personal level, the people that come here to run these businesses, to help them a little bit settle in a foreign country, which is not easy. Sometimes very underestimated, And you only need, you want to give as much as work as possible to Ugandans, but you will need a few foreign people that are specialized in certain things to start up everything, to run the whole pace, to be the intermediates between the home country and the investment of the home country and Uganda. One thing, there's many ways that people that start up a business will need advice. And not all advice you can find in, let's say, the classical advising structures, consultancy structures. Some advice is sometimes very necessary advice, is down to the ground. Look at the HR people. How do you hire people? Who do you hire? What you watch out for if you hire people? All these practical things that foreign companies don't have no clue when they come here. What are your rights and duties, and how do you treat people in a proper way? How do you deal with the knowledge, which is not so bad. I think I once had a conversation with the director of Total Energies here in Uganda, and he says the local staff is much better educated here in Uganda than many other African countries. He was very pleased with the education level of Ugandan staff. It was interesting to know. I heard from a few people, but a lot of people complain about that the other way. But I think what is very necessary here, and that's for every country in the world, when you invest in a certain country, you hire staff, you need to train them very well. You need to invest in training, and I see that lacking very often here. That I see sometimes staff working in a certain place, they're not trained. Staff working in a store don't even know what they're selling, but that's changing. Staff working into, I say, hospitality business, and also don't know. They ask, oh, do you have a good white wine? They never drunk wine in their life. They have no idea what wine is, And they bring you a sweet wine, which you would never bring to a foreigner. You would never bring a sweet wine because they don't. It's only in Uganda drink sweet wines, but mostly overseas they don't drink sweet wines. It's not possible. So these things, the training, invest in training of your staff. But some companies do very well and have very well trained staff. But some neglect that. And I think it's very important that you train your staff very well for your company to work very well, no matter what business you're in. but also for the staff member itself, so the staff member can grow within your company and become a more and more valuable partner in your company. It works always both ways. So these things need to be worked on, and some people do good, some companies do well, some don't. To do business here, there's a lot of opportunities. The biggest opportunity is, of course, the costs of staff, where not only the cost of staff, availability of staff. As we know, like in Europe, with an elderly population, we have about, I don't know what percentage, a huge percentage of our population is 65 plus and retired. So 21% of all the income of Belgium, 20% of our national turnover is going to pensions, paying pensions. I'm one of them. Get my monthly salary from the government for the rest of my life. And in the old days, when they say you retire when you're 65, so on average, people died on average when they were 65. So they say some live a few years longer, maybe maximum 10 or 5. So it's all very affordable. But now, the average lifespan in Belgium is about 83 or 84. And for the 65 pluser, the expected lifespan is 89. So that means, and most people retire a bit earlier. So let's say that most governments, not most, the government has to pay an average set of like 4, 5, 6, 7 to 10 years. They have to pay about 25 years retirement. But paying someone 25 years of salary for doing nothing, it becomes rather expensive for the country. You know, it's not only paying the salary, because you got free medical care, you got free education, you don't need any more, and you have free education, but that's for the kids. For example, if you're 65 plus, you get almost free public transport, trains and buses and stuff like that are almost for free. So you get a lot of extra costs that an elderly population brings. And also the medical care is free, but the older you get, the more medical care you need. That causes also issues. That's expensive. But again, the most problematic thing, and that's why I stopped, mainly stopped my business in Europe, and that's what I hated the most. You really have to beg people to work for you. And it is, I remember on one Sunday, I had a hotel backpackers with about 72 rooms and 200 beds plus. And all the cleaning staff had a party the night before. Nobody came to clean. And I had all new people coming in. That was a disaster. I had to work, I do it myself, but I cannot clean 72 rooms, of course, so I had to call everybody I knew, please come and help me. And I couldn't fire them because there was nobody else to do it. I had to stay friendly to them. I couldn't even, I was pissed off, obviously, but they were just laughing at me. He says, oh, well, we can go, we can find a job right away. So I know, so you better stay friends with your staff. But not only that, we have also 120% social security on the salaries of staff. When they pay you $100, I have to pay $100, I have to pay $120 to the government. And of course, there's a minimum wage there as well, which is high. So let's say an average staff member with social security, that's not their salary, salary, biggest part social security, assurances and other legal fees that you have to pay. An average staff member would come around these days plus minus around $5,000 a month for one person for a 38-hour week. 38 hours, not 1 hour more. And it's controlled by the government. You're not going to work 1 hour longer, or you get extra money, of course. You can do over hours and then you after hours, and then you pay an extra fee, but you pay taxes on it as well. So that not only labor is hugely expensive, but it's also very rare. There's crisis in all fields in Europe, I mean in Northern Europe especially. Not in Southern Europe, in Northern Europe. Care, elder care, the elderly homes, nurses, stuff like that. There's a huge shortage. And there's big problems because of having no staff to take care of sick people, old people, drivers, truck drivers, coach drivers, electricians, bricklayers, carpenters. The only thing we have enough of is engineers. Even this depends on where. and people with education. We have enough of that, you know. But people that really work, it's very difficult to get. It's a very big problem, which you don't have, of course, in Uganda. It's a completely different environment. But also in Uganda, for an foreign investor, there's a lot of possibilities to invest here, and to it's good for the country, create jobs. You can have a better life to the people. Usually, foreign investors will pay better salaries than the local people. I think most of the times, depends on it. Maybe Indian companies, I'm not so sure if they're very open to that. But if it's Western companies, they will uh, treat their staff better and pay better salaries. That's for sure. That I know from the ones I know, of course. I mean, you never know 100%, but I don't know all the companies, and I don't know all what they pay their staff. But a lot of them actually are paying decent amounts for their staff. It's something they bring back from home. It's a mentality you bring back from your, your country where you have been always working, and there's certain things that you cannot avoid that you want to do here as well, that you cannot really change your mind and not doing them, you know. And that's one of the things. Also other things that yeah, it's I think for foreign investors, Uganda has a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things that still need to be done here. There's a lot of things that could be produced here for export and create a lot of jobs. Um, if you're willing to invest, and if you're also willing to invest in education. But again, they have to invest in education in their home countries as well, and it's much cheaper to do it here. What else? Yeah, the country, Uganda has everything to offer. I mean, there's everything. Look at how green the bloody place is. Look around you, how beautiful it is. All year round. Look, I'm sitting here and I'm sitting in my garden. It looks like people would pay a fortune in Europe to have something like that. It's not possible.